Hi, I'm Ben Bowley, Head of Training and Chief Instructor for the Clipper Race. I was a race skipper in the 2011-12 edition and have been managing the training department for the last few years. Our purpose in the training department is to prepare ordinary people for one of the world's toughest endurance challenges. We do this by putting them through 4 weeks of intense training, at the end of which they will be safe, efficient ocean race crew. We created these videos as an aid to the Clipper Race training program. We're going to have a look at the most useful knots you're likely to use on board, the operation of the running backstays, and some basic winch work. So let's get started. So the first knot we're going to talk about today is the Tuckmans Hitch. And this is a very useful knot for securing, for example, a mooring line onto a winch or a topping lift onto a winch. The reason we like to use the Tuckmans Hitch is twofold. One is it's very easy to undo even when it's under a very high load. And also, you don't want to be putting the line into the teeth of the winch, as you can damage the winch with the thickness of the line. So once you've taken as much tension as you need on the mooring line, continue round in a clockwise direction and pass a loop of rope underneath the standing part, or the working part of the line. You then pull that back on itself, come back the opposite way, and then you must pass another loop of line from the same direction you went the first time, over the top of the winch, pull, and then this gets finished off with a couple of safety turns around the top, like so. I want to talk to you about the bowline now. It's a very useful knot on a boat, mainly because no matter how much load it's come under, you can always undo the knot, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. To be tying a sheet to the clew of a headsail, if you've got the space on the clew ring, it's very well worthwhile making a full loop or a round turn around the clew ring itself, and that just helps to take some of the pressure off the knot when it comes under load. Depending how much of the working part of the line you pull through will define how big your loop is. You want your loops to be a reasonable size, but not too big. If they end up being very long, when we start sheeting this on, the bowline can get pulled into the sheet car. In the same vein, you don't want them too small, because if you have two knots very tightly tied against here, they can start interfering with each other and bind up. I'm going to show you two different methods for tying the bowline. The first one's the more common. Start off by making a loop in the standing part of the line, like so, making sure that the working part of the line is looped over the top of the standing part. You then take your working part, come up through the loop you've made, pass it around the back of the standing part, and then feed it back down through the loop. To pull it tight and secure, hold these two parts and then pull on the standing part. And you'll notice I've left a decent length tail there. It's very important to leave a good length of tail, especially on sheets. As you start to hoist this sail, the sail's going to be flogging around, and this knot can start to work itself a little bit loose until it's come under load. So it's important to make sure you leave enough tail that a little bit can slip through. So that's the most common way of tying a bowline. I'm going to show you a slightly different method now, which is my preferred choice. And it looks a little more complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's a lot quicker and simpler. You simply pinch the working part of the line over the standing part, rotate your wrist, and then close the loop. You can then pick up the working part, pass it down through the loop again, and pull tight. You will find, once you've been using this bowline and the sheets come under a lot of load, often it can be a little bit difficult to try and undo the knot. The simple way in which you need to undo it is you turn the bowline upside down so that you have this looped part here exposed, and you need to break the back of it. So if you grip both parts of the loop here, and with the palm of your hand push like so, and that should be just enough that you can start to work the knot open, and it comes undone very easily. The knot we're going to go through now is a rolling hitch, and this is a very useful knot should you need to unload a winch without allowing the line to slip out. For example, you may have a riding turn on your winch drum here, and before you can undress the winch to sort out the riding turn, you must transfer the load onto this rolling hitch. So let's have a look. So, when you're tying a rolling hitch, it's important that you make sure the piece of line you're going to use has enough strength in it to take the load from the winch. So, in this example, I'm going to put a loop around the winch base here, and that's just to stop this line going out any further. We're then going to go into tying the rolling hitch itself. So as you tie the line, your intention is to wrap up the piece that is going to the winch, progressively putting more and more turns, covering up the piece that is going to the winch with each turn. So each time you're passing between the standing part of the line there that's going to the winch, you're rolling it across. You ideally want 3, in an ideal world 4 wraps around the line. The way we finish it off is just like a clove hitch. So on the final turn, we don't go between the standing part and the active line. We finish it off just like this. What you're going to see in a moment as I ease the tension off this winch drum, so you should see as this part of the line comes under load, it will start to kink the rope, and the more load that comes onto it, the tighter these 3 or 4 turns here grip onto the line itself. So as I ease off the winch, that has now completely freed up this line. I can sort out whatever I need to on the winch, or I can transfer it to another winch, and it's held tightly against there. To get this off, all you're going to have to do is fully dress the winch again, load it up as best you can, make sure it's locked with a couple of safety turns on, and that has unloaded this part of the rolling hitch, and we just reverse the knot. Once that's free, take the loop from your anchor point and you're good to go. One area that can sometimes be confusing to crew is the operation of the running backstays. So we're going to look at the 2 main operations of the running backstays. That's bringing them on before attack and sending them forward after attack. So before we actually start pulling the runner on, when you hear the call of ready to tack, runner back, you need to take the tricing line, which is the red and white line here, the thinner of the 2 ropes, take that off the winch and make sure there are no twists in it. Now the reason we've got to make sure there are no twists is this line pulls the runner forward. It secures it out of the way in a forward position. And therefore, if we need to bring the runner back, we must be releasing the tricing line whilst pulling on the runner tail, which is this part here, the actual working part of the runner. So make sure you flake the line across your hand, like so. You're just checking to make sure there are no knots, no twists, so that it can come back in one smooth motion. Once you've done that, you can lay it down on the deck, being careful not to stand on it as the runner comes back. Then going to release it from its cam cleat here. Take the runner out of the teeth, 3 turns around the drum as we always do. So before putting the runner on, you want a nice loud call of runner coming back to make sure nobody on the side deck's going to get hit by the runner block. Tricing line is released from here, and then it's just big armfuls of runner tail till the runner is all the way back before we winch it on. When you go to load this on the drum, before you start winching, it's really important that you fully dress the winch drum, remembering to leave a very small gap at the top before going into the self-tailer. You can then take a winch handle. Now make sure at this point the tricing line has not been secured in its cam jammer here. We still need the runner to come back a little bit further, and if you lock off the tricing line, it will prevent the runner from coming back any further. In terms of tension, you almost can't make these too tight. It should be tight enough that the line goes bar tight. Winch handle out, back in the pocket. Always important to finish off with a couple of safety turns. And at this point, now that all the load is on the runner tail, you can lock off the tricing line in the cam cleat there. Finish with your runner tail. Nice figure of eights around the top of the winch so that it's ready to ease off again when we tack back the other way. What we're going to look at now is sending the runner forward, which is what we do during attack when we are changing this runner from being the active working runner to the lazy runner. So when we send this runner forward, what we're going to do is stop about halfway when the block is probably just forward of the gate, and we're then going to pull tight on both the runner tail and the tricing line. What that will do is form a guard of the runner inside of any flogging Yankee sheets to protect crew that are working in the forward part of the cockpit. Just as we did when we brought the runner on, it's important to make sure all our lines are free and not twisted up. So I'm just going to run the runner tail through my hand. Nice big loops, making sure, as we can see there, you've got a little knot in it, to undo any knots as they go through. We're going to lay it on the deck and make sure our tricing line is free to run as well. So what we're going to do in this operation is we're going to be easing out on the runner tail, which is the working part of the runner, and pulling in on the tricing line, which is what we use to secure the runner in the forward position. Be aware, when you go to take this out of the self-tailer, this line is under a serious amount of load. And it's very important you use good winch protocol and take most of the tension off before removing any more turns from the drum. Ease it out. If you ease it out too quickly, you're putting a lot of shock load into the rig as it bounces. So we ease off the tension. Once most of the load is off, we can drop down so there's just one turn left around the winch, and that turn will help remove any twists from the runner tail. We're then going to start pulling in on the tricing line. We make a nice call of runner going forward. And when the tricing line, when the runner is about halfway forward, so here, we're going to secure the tricing line again and pull tight on the runner tail. We're just going to hold it in this position. If it's a little bit hard to hold, you might want a second turn around the drum. What that's going to form is the guard for the cockpit. Once the sheets have stopped flogging and we're ready to put the runner all the way forward, and then release the runner tail again and pull in on the tricing line until the runner is all the way forward. So once the runner is all the way forward, tricing line goes into the cam cleat again. You then just pop a couple of turns around the runner tail, pull it hand tight and secure it off in the self-tailer. That's the runner all the way forward, but we're not quite finished yet. We want to make sure we tidy up all this line so it's ready to use in the next tack. Same as before, nice figure of eights. You'll see there's not much runner tail left because we pulled it all the way forward. But what you do have a lot of is a lot of tricing line. So you're just going to figure of eight this nicely around a winch, like so. And that way, you've got the least chance of getting twists and knots in the line. Should be ready to go again when you want to pull it back. I'm going to run you through the basic operation of these winches. Now, these winches can see quite a lot of load on them, so it's really important you get your winch protocol just right. Whenever we're loading a line onto a winch, we always want to make sure we put at least 3 turns clockwise around the drum. And the reason for that is it's the friction of the line against the winch that stops it from slipping out. If you have less than 3 turns, it's not enough friction when the line comes under load to still hold it. So all the winches spin clockwise, so we always load them in a clockwise direction, making sure that we're always holding the line with our little finger towards the winch or a hand on top of the rope. 3 turns, nice and neatly, clockwise around the winch drum. You're then going to pull in as much as you can by hand on the rope, remembering to use your body rather than your arms. Once you've pulled all that you can by hand, you're then going to load a 4th turn, and if there's enough space on the winch, sometimes a 5th turn around the drum. Comes into the self-tailer, pull tight. At no point there did I let my hand come in between the rope and the winch, so I'm just going to demonstrate that again. So you've got your 3 turns on the drum, pull in a little bit on the line, and then keeping a constant straight radius pull away from the centre of the winch, comes across the silver pre-feeder, winch stripper, into the self-tailer at the top. Once it's into the self-tailer at the top, you can let go of the line. Take a winch handle out, pop it in the top of the winch, start to grind. You're going to go in the difficult direction first, remembering to use your body weight, not the strength in your arms, to winch in as much as you can. You're then going to stop. If you still need to bring in further on the line, turn the handle the opposite way and you drop down a gear. When you've winched in as much as you can, winch handle comes out and goes straight back into the pocket. Final thing you want to do is pop a couple of safety turns around the top. When we come to undress the winch, there are 2 ways in which we do this. One is if we ease out, and the other is to let fly. Talk about easing out first. Take the safety turns off, starting with your little finger pointed to the winch, close to the top of the winch. Keep your elbow locked, and that will force your hand to stay below the top of the winch drum. You then, again, constant radius pull away from the winch. Take out of the self-tailer, flat palm, fingers together, push the turns out and down off the winch drum whilst easing out with your other hand. And then, when you've eased out as much as you need, it goes back into the self-tailer and a couple of safety turns on the top. The other one you're going to do is let fly. And when you want to let fly on a winch, take the turns, safety turns off. Again, take it out of the self-tailer, remembering that this could be under a lot of load, so it's really important, as I take it out of the self-tailer, you keep this line under constant tension and your hand below the top of the winch. Once you're sure that you're ready to let fly, not stood on the rope, it's not caught round anyone's leg, you're just going to spin the turns off the top of the winch drum, nice and quickly, and let the line go out. So, when we want to tidy up the rope at the end, you're going to finish it off with a figure of 8. The reason we use a figure of 8 rather than a straight loop is to create a straight loop, you have to put twists into the line. If you put a twist into the line, it means when you go to ease it out, that little twist can get caught in various blocks. So the figure of 8 is the way we want to finish it off, and the very best way to do this is to orientate one of your hands downward and catch the line like this. You then going alternate ways around the winch clockwise and then around your hand anti-clockwise. Clockwise, anti-clockwise. And you end up with the line figure of 8'd, no twists in it, but the 2 parts are not interlocked. Like so. Hope you found the videos useful. They're intended to give a brief insight into the training we provide at the Clipper Race. If you require further and more detailed information, they can be found in your Clipper Race training manual or your wet notes. If you're interested in taking part in the Clipper Race or want more information, please visit our website.